Far away from crowded cities and busy streets, there are places where people go to disappear. In the film Shelter, we meet a man who has done exactly that. His name is Mason, and for years he lived a life most people could never imagine. Once a highly trained operative, Mason spent much of his past working in dangerous missions that required precision, secrecy, and often violence. Eventually, that life caught up with him. Instead of continuing down the same path, Mason made a decision that few people in his line of work ever managed to make. He walked away. Leaving behind the system that trained him, he disappeared into isolation, choosing a quiet life far from the organizations and conflicts that once controlled him. Now he lives alone on a remote island, surrounded only by the sound of waves, the wind, and the steady rhythm of a world that moves much slower than the one he left behind. For a while, it seems like Mason has succeeded in escaping his past. Days pass quietly, and the island offers him something he has not experienced in years: peace. But the calm does not last forever. One night, a violent storm arrives, shaking the island with powerful winds and dangerous waves. During the chaos of the storm, a small boat crashes near the shore. When Mason investigates, he discovers a young girl who has survived the accident. Her name is Jessie. Alone, injured, and frightened, she has nowhere else to go. Mason, a man who has spent years avoiding human connections, suddenly finds himself responsible for someone else's safety. At first, their relationship is distant and uncomfortable. Mason has spent too long pushing people away, and Jessie is unsure how to trust a man who barely speaks and clearly wants to be left alone. But as time passes, their situation begins to change. Mason slowly realizes that protecting Jessie may be more important than protecting his isolation. However, events far beyond the island are already beginning to shift. Somewhere within the intelligence network that once employed Mason, evidence appears suggesting that he is still alive. For powerful organizations that deal in secrecy, a former operative with deep knowledge of their operations can be a serious problem. In their view, loose ends are dangerous. Once the information spreads, decisions are made quickly. People begin asking questions. Surveillance systems start scanning. And before long, the quiet island that Mason believed would hide him forever is no longer safe. This is where the film begins to explore one of its central themes: the idea that the past never truly disappears. For someone like Mason, every choice he made during his previous life carries consequences that cannot simply be erased. Even years later, those consequences still have the power to reshape his future. As pressure from the outside world grows, Mason is forced to confront a reality he hoped to avoid. The peaceful life he built is fragile. If he wants to protect Jessie and keep his new life from collapsing, he must once again rely on the skills he spent years trying to forget. The story becomes a careful balance between two sides of Mason's character. On one side is the man he used to be, a highly trained fighter capable of surviving almost any threat. On the other side is the man he is trying to become, someone who wants nothing more than a quiet existence free from violence. Throughout the film, Jessie plays a crucial role in that transformation. Her presence reminds Mason that the world still contains things worth protecting. She represents innocence and hope, something his former life rarely allowed him to experience. But as the danger surrounding them increases, Mason realizes that the only way to truly protect that hope is to confront the forces hunting him. What follows is a tense struggle between a man determined to protect his new life and an organization determined to erase him from existence. The action sequences in Shelter reflect Mason's experience and determination. Unlike reckless fighters, he moves carefully, thinking several steps ahead of his enemies. Every decision he makes shows the discipline of someone who has survived countless dangerous situations. At the same time, the film never forgets the emotional weight behind those actions. Each confrontation is not simply about survival, but about ensuring that Jessie's life does not become another casualty of the world Mason once lived in. As the story builds toward its conclusion, secrets about Mason's past begin to surface. Old allies, former enemies, and the people who once gave him orders all play a part in the conflict. The deeper Mason digs, the clearer it becomes that the hunt for him is not random. Someone with power and influence wants to make sure he disappears permanently. The final act of the film brings Mason face to face with the reality he has been avoiding for years. If he wants a future where Jesse can live safely, he must resolve the unfinished business that followed him from his previous life. Without revealing every detail, the ending of Shelter focuses on the idea of redemption. Mason cannot erase everything he has done, but he can choose what kind of person he becomes moving forward. By protecting Jesse and confronting his past, he takes a step toward reclaiming the humanity he once lost. Even after the immediate threat is gone, Mason understands that his life will never be completely normal. People with his history rarely get a clean ending. Instead, he continues living in the shadows, making sure that the small piece of peace he managed to build remains safe. In many ways, Shelter is not just an action film about survival. It is also a story about responsibility, redemption, and the difficult journey of someone trying to leave a violent past behind. Mason's struggle reminds us that while the past may shape who we are, it does not have to define who we become. And sometimes, the greatest battles are not the ones fought against enemies, but the ones fought to protect the people who give our lives meaning. As Mason follows the last clues pointing to the people responsible for hunting him, the trail leads him to a crowded nightclub in the middle of the city. The loud music, flashing lights, and packed dance floor make it the perfect place for someone to hide in plain sight. But Mason knows the danger is waiting somewhere inside. Moving carefully through the crowd, he scans every corner of the room. Years of experience have taught him how to read a situation instantly. The tension is obvious. The people sent to eliminate him are already here, blending into the chaos of the club while waiting for the right moment to strike. Within seconds, the confrontation begins. What starts as a quiet search quickly turns into a brutal fight. Mason uses the environment around him, moving through the club with the precision of someone who has survived countless battles before. Tables crash, lights flicker, and panic spreads across the dance floor as the fight escalates. But for Mason, this is more than just another fight. This is the moment that decides whether the past finally catches up with him. Every move he makes brings him closer to the person responsible for everything that has happened. After fighting his way through the attackers, Mason finally comes face to face with the man behind the entire operation. The confrontation is intense, filled with years of betrayal and unfinished business. For Mason, this is the final step in breaking free from the life he once lived. In the end, Mason manages to stop the threat once and for all. But even after the fight is over, he understands that his life will never truly return to normal. Sometime later, Jesse is seen living a safer and more peaceful life far away from the violence that once surrounded her. From a distance, Mason quietly watches, making sure she is safe before disappearing once again into the world. He may still live in the shadows, but this time, he knows that protecting her future made every battle worth it.